sorry, just to add on to that, and then I have a question. But one of my interpreter friends is hired to be a interpreter for a company, and has worked there a couple of years, and they're expanding into Mexico, so they're having her learn Spanish. So sometimes it comes from your company side as well, and like external motivation to do that, being forced. So I think a lot of you have touched on like the Chisoko and also the kind of divisions that you get between the American staff and the Japanese staff. Could you talk a bit more about your strategies for approaching that?
Well, I work with a really small group, so, and, you know, we all, many of us share desks. So getting to know people, breaking that ice is pretty simple. But I do know in larger companies, you know, we do work directly with Honda and some other suppliers and stuff. You know, there is a huge division, and it's up to you to make that effort to break through that division. Because a lot of times, you know, they don't know what to say either, so they're afraid of their English. So that's been sort of what I've observed.
With normally what I have, it's all internal. The two divisions, whether it be Japanese or non-Japanese, and a large part of it is just getting both sides to both understand each other as well. So explaining to the Japanese staff why we don't assign people positions, why we actually post a job and have them apply to it and vet them that way. Or explaining to the American staff, he's not really angry at you, that's just the way that he manages and that's the way that he speaks, because that's the way that people at that level speak in Japan. That it's not that he's upset or anything, that that's just the way that he is. And just explaining to both sides though, so that when they're talking through an interpreter, they kind of have an idea of being on the same page, rather than just their own culture when the other person isn't speaking in that same culture.
I've had similar challenges. I mean, I started very young. I've been in the company 15 years, and I've had 6 sales advisors that I've had to work with in that time. They come over for 3 to 5 years at a time with a working visa. And so I've gone through all the different age relationships and Kohai Senpai and all that as well. And I've definitely, in the beginning, overstepped my bounds many times. So much so that I thought it was the end of my career at that company many times as well. But I think that if you always show interpersonal respect, you can correct those. And if you also respect yourself and your own opinions, that goes a long way as well. That's what rose me to the level that I'm at in my company, is being willing to know when I was right, you know, to be able to make sure that I was heard respectfully. So.
I would add to that, don't be afraid to make a mistake.
Right.
You will. It's okay. I mean, you know, they'll oftentimes give you a break. I mean, the better your Japanese gets, the more they think you mean what you say, which is sort of the challenge. But, you know, realizing that something has gone wrong and being able, like, you must being able to apologize, being able, even if you feel like you were in the right, you know, it's there for a reason, because you're mending that relationship. So don't be afraid to go out and talk to people, even if you stick your foot in your mouth. It's okay. You'll laugh and get over it. So.
I think it shows a dedication as well. If you're willing to apologize for a situation that occurred, because you care. You cared about the result, and if something doesn't come out the way that somebody else had intended, if you share that, experience with them by saying something like that, it goes a long way.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I was wondering specifically how your Ohio State, for those of you that studied abroad for Ohio State, how your Ohio State study abroad program prepared you for your current job now.
All right, I went to Kobe University, and that rings bells for Japanese. It certainly helped open doors. People think that I must be some genius or something because I went to Kobe University. I didn't take an entrance exam to get there. It helped an awful lot in that regard. And being there, as I mentioned, helped me to gain the confidence I needed, turn the switch in my mind to allow the words to flow when I needed them. Made tons of mistakes, like you said, just tons. But nobody looking at me expects me to be able to speak Japanese at all. So it does help. You know, people don't have that anticipation that you're going to be perfect. So.
I think in my case, I poorly planned for my study abroad in the sense I took all my electives right before I went. So every course that I pretty much took was just kind of in Japan, and the credits didn't really matter. So I took a lot of the things that I learned when I was in Japan was going out and making a lot of Japanese friends, both inside the school, but then a lot outside, and trying to, I guess, dance between what's polite and what's impolite, and then making a lot of mistakes. If it wasn't in the particular study abroad trip, but for example, I remember the first time I went to Japan, I went with my shoes on and stepped on a tatami mat in a restaurant, and man, I never forgot it for the rest of my life, because I had a whole restaurant staring at me, and then my friends are yelling dude, what the hell are you doing? Now everybody's gonna look at us while we're drinking beers, and so it's like those kind of, and from that year full of experiences, because trust me, I had a lot of them. I learned a lot about owning up. Yeah, like what they were saying is just, if you do something wrong, you own up to it. It helps with networking. Even talking to people over in Japan, for me was, I think, how I learned a little bit of an art of speaking with people and trying to start conversations where you would think you would have something in common with somebody. Just because they're halfway around the world and you can halfway speak the language, it doesn't mean you can't have a meaningful conversation.
Just for me, it was more of just learning the culture of it. Learning about it and thinking you know it and then going over and actually experiencing it is two different things. And so even if you think you're prepared, you're not. But then also being able to just experience just interacting with native Japanese people, with the culture, just even living there is different, but it helps you understand the language a lot better. And then hearing it all the time helps you understand it as well, even if you're not practicing, which I highly recommend, please practice. But even if you're not, just hearing it, you get so much better at hearing and understanding the way that they use it, not just that they say sumimasen when they mean sorry, but how do they say it, or in what situations do they say it. That has so many different connotations depending on the different situations and how you say it. Just being able to, and that's not something you can learn in the classroom. So that has helped me to understand how to use it, and knowing for when I'm interviewing, they know that I've lived there as well, and so they automatically know that I have some experience with the culture. It's not just the language, it's not that I've both learned everything and how to speak, but that I know kind of how to interact with people, and they know that I have some experience with interacting more natively.
I didn't study abroad through OSU, obviously, but I still recommend it, and I do recommend having a host family. It's as close as you can get to a Japanese mommy. You think about your own parents and how they teach you English as you're going through the day. And definitely my host mom, well, obviously my host dad showed up once, but my host mom was vital in that, teaching me to say things, and demonstrating that for me when we would go out and do things. And that's invaluable. And that's not something you can learn in a classroom. That's not something that you're going to learn in a business. But it shows you again that uchi soto kind of thing, and it gives you a good demonstration of that. And like you were talking about with networking and stuff like that, the people that you meet. And I wish I'd had more Japanese friends and fewer American friends, but I was a little nervous. So going back, I wish I had just said, forget it, I'm just going to go do it. So that would be my advice, definitely. And also with networking, your Japanese teachers are an excellent resource. I know you think of them as it's sensei, and they may be intimidating, they may be whatever, but they are a great first contact point for you, believe it or not. So don't forget about them.
got a little bit of time for some networking, and I think there's some giveaways up here. There's some cookies, so if you can have some informal conversation, that would be great.
Sweet.
Thank you very much. If we can thank our speakers.